ready to launch one of the most daring missions of the war. The target was a power plant in Vemork, Norway. Early in the war, Allied leaders had learned of the Germans' production of so-called heavy water, a key component for the production of an atomic bomb. Many of the scientists who fled Germany years before believed their countrymen were closer than any other nation to building an atomic bomb.
Churchill and Roosevelt met in America and discussed the problem and decided that we have to do something with it. We have to stop the Germans producing it. And the only way of doing it was sabotage. They decided that you can't bomb it because you will get so many civilian casualties, because this is a very, very narrow valley.
The first mission, Operation Freshman, was launched on October 18, 1942. 2 gliders containing 40 well-armed and trained paratroopers were towed behind 2 bombers across the English Channel.
Of the 4 aircraft, only 1 returned. 1 of the tugs got back, but the other tug and both gliders crashed, killing most of the people on board. And those who weren't killed in the crash were massacred shortly thereafter by the Gestapo.
Giving up was not an option. A new plan was designed, this one using SOE officers from Norway. Joachim Rønneberg was a young Norwegian considered by his British superiors to be bright, resourceful, and brave. Rønneberg was brought to London and asked to lead a team back to Norway for a second attempt to destroy the plant. Rønneberg learned not only why the mission was top secret, but also of the danger he and his team would face.
Well, when I came down to London, I was told that the Germans knew the target and they were building up the defenses there.
The first attempt had relied upon force to achieve the objective. This time, the Vemork plant would be taken with stealth. To attack the heavily fortified plant, Rønneberg chose a small team of 6 Norwegian operatives. First, they would have to find a way into the plant. The building sat on top of a hill. A bridge across a deep gorge offered the only access. German and Norwegian guards were almost always on duty, though there were fewer guards at night. The team waited until dark, when most of the Germans were asleep. They descended the gorge and climbed up the ice-covered wall on the other side. Once inside the building, half the team covered the sleeping Germans, while Rønneberg snuck further into the facility.
We saw through a window that there was 1 Norwegian guard in the room, and we took him by surprise. And he was standing with hands in the air.
With the guards inside the plant subdued, Rønneberg proceeded to set his plastic explosives. As he and his men worked, they received an unusual request.
When we were doing this Norwegian guardman, or workman, suddenly broke in and said that he couldn't do anything preventing us blowing up the factory, but could he have his glasses, because it was so difficult to get glasses in Norway these days. And you would think in such a situation that you would answer, damn your glasses, but instead you dropped what you were doing, you were looking around the room and you found the box for the glasses and gave them to him, and he said, thank you very much.
Rønneberg and his men made their way out of the plant as the explosion ripped through the darkness. The guards' compound was far enough away that they didn't hear the explosion at first, and the men were able to get back across the gorge. The next morning, the Germans launched a manhunt. Rønneberg and his men escaped from Vemork, but the most difficult part of their journey lay ahead. Since no planes could land and pick them up, Rønneberg and his team had to ski for 18 days to the safety of neutral Sweden.
We saw quite a lot of people on the way, but we suspected people seeing soldiers in Norway in uniform and with weapons on their rucksacks to be Germans and not Norwegians. And that was true enough. We met people and they certainly believed us to be Germans. When we got to this hospital, we were asked to take off all our clothes and put them in a bunch And so we were invited into shower, and there you had two very nice Swedish nurses with a bucket of soap and a brush, and started brushing from there and downwards. And it was quite a reception, I must say.
This act of sabotage by Rønneberg and his team, orchestrated by British intelligence, denied the Third Reich a key ingredient for its atomic program. Had Germany been the first nation to develop the atom bomb, the war most certainly would have ended differently. By 1943, SOE had evolved into the elite fighting force its founders had envisioned. SOE operatives had successfully parachuted into France and other occupied countries, set up supply drops, and recruited resistance fighters. They'd become adept at blowing up bridges, stopping trains, disrupting supply lines, and destroying communications equipment. But for all the success of Britain's secret war, the most important goal still remained: retaking the European continent. From the beginning of the war, Britain had been planning for the day of the invasion, and secret organizations were a big part of that plan. SOE, BSC, and MI6 would all play important roles.